Hot work is one of the common work activities in industry or industrial setting. We can talk about the construction industry, manufacturing industry, oil and gas, petrochemical, aeronautical, automobile. These industries all perform various types of hot work that, you know, could expose them to very detrimental consequences if proper control measures are not put in place. Now, when we talk about hot work, is any activity that involve flame or heat, sparks. So you can talk about cutting metals, grinding activities, welding, any form of activity that could cause ignition. And depending on where the hot work is performed, if it is an explosive zone, which means that there's some form of explosive atmosphere like flammable substances or combustible substances, then if the basic conditions are met, then there could be an explosion or fire. And we don't want to have that. No company want to experience that. That is why it's important to put in specific control measures to avert this situation. Now, when we talk about hot work, the main risk is fire and explosion, or it could be any of them. So it's important first to ensure that workers who are involved with hot work activities are trained in hot work. So training will provide knowledge of the hazards involved, how to identify explosive atmosphere and the control measures and all that. So once they are well trained, that is a first step of controlling hot work risk. The second is to make sure that there's some form of permit control when you perform high risk hot work activities. For example, if you are going to perform a hot work activity in a hydrogen area or an area where there is natural gas storage, like a gas kit or a gas tank farm, and so on and so forth, it's important to have a permit system to control work activities in these areas. And of course, you also need to conduct atmospheric gas testing before performing the hot work to determine the gas levels, which will also help you to know the risk level that you're working with, so that you can put in proper controls before the work is done. Basically, we have various levels of hot work hazards. We have the extreme high, which is usually classified as EX0, which is or EX20, which means EX0 means that there's continuous presence of explosive atmosphere or combustible atmosphere. Then we also have EX1 or EX21, which means that there is sometimes there is a flammable atmosphere. Or, for instance, when you have a safety relief valve, which when there's overpressure, it will release the excess pressure, so that area can be classified as EX1. And then we also have, so this is also a high risk classification, and the medium risk classification, or EX2 or EX22, is what we classify as, for instance, if you have a pipeline which is having the flammable content, so without any leakages around that area, then we can classify that as EX2, yeah, okay, or EX22 for combustibles. Now, once you are able to determine the hazard classification of the hot work or the area where you are going to perform the hot work, only then you'll be able to put in appropriate control measures. If you don't know the hazard classification, it's very difficult. For example, if it is EX 0 and you are not aware and you assume that it's EX 2, EX 1, you may be putting in control measures that may not be adequate, or EX2, you may be putting control measures that may not be adequate. Now, the last classification is low hazard, which means, for example, in our homes, usually, like in your living room or in a meeting room where there's no gas or combustible, this will be classified as a low hazard area. So any form of hot work, let's say they are coming to fix some broken down equipment in your house and they are performing hot work like blazing or welding, it's a low hazard area. And of course, with that, there are control measures to put in place, but they are not as significant as working in an EX zone like ES1, 2, 0, 1, and 2, right? Now, we also talk about the gas testing. So usually the atmospheric gas testing is required for all the EX zone except in the low hazard area, because the low hazard area there are no gases or combustibles, so you don't need to do any gas testing. It's actually a waste of time if you're doing that. You also need to remove combustibles from the hot work area, at least 11 meters radius from the hot work area. If it's not possible to remove them, you can cover them with damp sand or a fire blanket, right? To make sure that the hot work activity cannot cause any harm, Then you must also have a fire extinguisher close by the work area in case of a fire, incipient fire. It can easily be put off, right? Now, usually, we also require that there is a fire watch assigned to the hot work activity. And the role of this gentleman is just to look out for fire whilst the workers perform the hot work. Sometimes when you are doing welding activity, sometimes one of the hot fire can roll into a combustible area and start a fire without you knowing, So it's important to have a fire watch, and the fire watch must stay at the work site 60 minutes after the hot work is completed, just to survey around to make sure that no fire will start after the hot work has been completed and the workers have left the site. I have an experience where in one of the workshops that I managed, there was a hot work, and then of course the workers had gone for lunch and the fire started. Obviously, there was no, what do you call it, a fire watch in place. Now, it is very important to have this for all hot work activities, regardless of the hazard classification. Do have a fire watch there, and the fire watch must perform the role of a fire watch, not to work as a worker, but just to conduct surveillance as the hot work is ongoing, and stay at the work site 60 minutes after the hot work is completed to make sure that no fire will start after the workers have left. So that is it for today for hot work. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe, comment, and then share the video so that your friends can also watch.